AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Bleav.
Doesn't matter if you're an Indian or if you're a Warhawk.
The ULM mention is the greatest. You'd hope for the best as a ULM fan, but
this is the Bleav in the Warhawks podcast with hosts Dusty Thibodeaux and Chase Ragin.
Chase, you always have such great insight.
Tibbs is going to bleep it all.
What are these guys always talking about?
We talk a lot about food on this podcast, and I'm going to continue to do so.
Really, really appreciative of the people and the community and the way that they backed us up.
Nailed the introduction, by the way. Awesome.
Thanks,
I love
Fish.
it.
No Chase for this. I think he lets the hatred for the rival Louisiana-Lafayette get too far into his head sometimes. So instead, I have the godfather of the Sun Belt, the voice of the Cajuns, the young man himself, Jay Walker. Jay, welcome in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to visit with you. Not necessarily the other guys in the Fun Belt podcast, but I love visiting with you.
Well, I'm glad to hear that there, Jay. It's been a crazy season, hadn't it? Where we thought the West was just going to run away and be the dominant division of the Sun Belt. James Madison and Old Dominion were going to battle it out in the East, but for the most part in the West, it was pretty much anybody's game. What the hell happened this year?
Well, I think what has happened was while you had a lot of teams that could win it, I don't know that any of the teams in the West were like, oh my God, this team is really great. Okay. I think that we thought James Madison could be a team like that. And I think we thought maybe even ODU, and that's proven kind of, I think, to be true. But on the Western side, you have some good football teams. Okay. I think Southern Miss is a good football team. I think Troy is a good football team. On any given day, I think the Cajuns or Arkansas or anybody else in the West can be a good football team. I don't know that everybody in the East can say that. I think the East is a little bit top heavy, but I think the Western Division was kind of wide open from the jump. And, I think the two teams that have played the best football are the two teams that are going to play in Hattiesburg this Saturday. And so, they've been the best through the 12 games. And, as somebody said one time, congratulations to you. They're getting to play to see who gets to play James Madison, and everybody else is just kind of fighting it.
I know we're both on the west side of the conference. Is this the time that we know James Madison is going to host the championship game? They have a pretty good team, and rightfully so, and I don't want to discount anything of that. But is this when we can finally say, all right, great, you got your conference title, now shut up and just be one of us?
I don't think that's going to happen. I will say this, though. You can't get too caught up, and I found myself doing this. Okay, I've been guilty. You can't get too caught up with taking the folks who are so boastful on social media and saying this is who JMU fans are. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, the times I've gone up to Harrisonburg, I've been treated great as a visitor. Now, the vocal people from James Madison thought they were too good for this league before they even joined it. And now that they are the best team in the league, those people are going to be insufferable. But I don't think that's – I don't think we can just project that and say all JMU fans are like that. I don't think that would totally be fair. But I'll tell you what, the ones that are on social media are about as obnoxious as they get.
Shane Mitland's on social media. Just throwing that out there.
And am I supposed to change what I just said because of that? Now, they've got a really good team, and they deserve all the flowers that they're getting right now. But, Dusty, I think if we take this a step farther, I think that this year, based on what we've seen so far, and we've got games this week and then conference championship games. I think that the College Football Playoff Committee is sending a message to the Sun Belt Conference. If you want to get in the playoff, you better win them all. Because I honestly believe that right now, JMU, North Texas, Tulane, I think JMU right now is the best team out of those three. And I think that you could make a case for them based on their body of work. But you notice that that's not the team that they have projected to be the 12 seed. And I think that there's a message being sent to the league that I don't particularly like. And that's that if you're going to be the representative, you better go undefeated.
I've always had a problem with that because there was a year that Bama was in the 4-team CFP, didn't even win the division, didn't win the SEC, and yet they were right there on the cusp of winning a national title. I get it. It's all about the money. It's all about the viewership. And an Alabama team is definitely going to draw more sponsorship money, more eyes to the TV and the media rights than a James Madison or insert any school, really. So I get it. But, yeah, you're right. If a G6 program doesn't run the table and at least have that one notch on their belt, which I think James Madison added to theirs when they were able to beat Washington State this past weekend, you're not going to get in just going 12-0.
No, you're gonna have to do that. I remember the year that Coastal Carolina was undefeated, and all they needed was for a team in the American to lose a game, and they were going to go, but they were undefeated. And then they didn't get in because the other team was there, and then Coastal lost in their bowl game that year. I just think if you're going to have one slot for those that aren't in the P4, I think the American is always going to have an advantage because they have some depth in that league. All right, you've got North Texas and Tulane and Navy and Memphis and USF. I mean, these are all pretty good football teams. And even the bottom of that league this year, even Tulsa's jumping up and winning a couple of games. And anybody not named Charlotte can go out there and be competitive. And I think as long as they stay that way, it's going to be hard on our end.
All that to say, though, Jay, this is a big game this weekend. Between the Warhawks, the Ragin Cajuns, yes, the Warhawks, a win there really does nothing in the body of the season, already hitting the 7-loss mark to be eliminated from bowl contention. But the Cajuns have everything on the line. What do you kind of hear out of that contingent of what this game means this upcoming weekend?
Game means everything. The Cajuns are looking for bowl eligibility for the 8th straight year. And a team that they had high hopes for that has been thoroughly decimated up front by injuries, and that at one time were 2-6. They've continued to play hard. They've continued to battle, and that they've managed to find a way to put themselves in this position to where if you win Saturday, you're going to get to play hopefully again. So no, this game means everything, because if you win this game, you're going to a bowl for the 8th straight year. You have a chance to have a winning season if you win your bowl game. If you don't, you're sitting there at 5-7, and Saturday's your last game. And I think this program, whether this is right or not, I think this program is at the point now where, according to our fan base, if you're not playing the 13th game, it has not been a good year. And I think that is going to hold true for the fan base this week. Dusty, how they've gotten to this point, I don't know. They lost 2 more linemen in the game Saturday. How do you go into the final game of the season when you have lost 9 offensive linemen for the year due to injury? You're playing guys who you didn't think were going to play at all this year. Okay, they were going to, get a few snaps here and there in garbage time, and you're asking these guys now to go out and carry the load for the up part of this offense, which relies so much on the running game. The fact that they're even in this position is a big surprise to a lot of people, because I don't know how many teams could begin to overcome what they're trying to overcome right now.
Maybe it's something with Governor Landry that he's sabotaging everybody but LSU, because, I mean, look at ULM's.
He's doing a pretty good job of sabotaging them, too, just by opening his mouth.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, Governor's a Ragin Cajun grad, okay? I don't know that I go around telling people that, because I don't know I'm necessarily proud of that, but hey, no, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just know that you've been following college football a long time, and I'm a lot older than you are. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen a team have to play guards at the tackle position because they're out of tackles. And that's happened in a couple of games this year. And, you lost your starting center and an important backup on this team. You lost them Saturday for the rest of the year. They'll have surgery this week. But they're going to go out and they're going to battle on Saturday, and maybe it'll be good enough. Maybe it won't. We'll have to wait and see.
You talk about the craziness. Jay, just remember that we're not on our first, our second, our third, or fourth, our 5th string place kicker.
Right.
At one point, we had the PWO quarterback that started a game. Didn't do bad. I will give him credit there, because your first and second string quarterbacks were out. It's something in the water this year, and I don't know what it is. But I feel like the Cajuns were really able to kind of find that diamond in the rough there of Lunch Winfield. I mean, sure, all named first teamer, but then was able to back it up with the performance on the field.
At the beginning of the year, Walker Howard was the starting quarterback. A local kid that had gone to bigger schools. It didn't work out for him, so he's coming home. And Daniel Beal was actually the number 2 quarterback, because the coaches didn't like the way that Lunch had thrown the football. They didn't like him in the throw game. And so when Walker Howard got hurt, Daniel Beal was the starting quarterback, and he started all the way up until the Marshall game. And then in the middle of the Marshall game, with the Cajuns down 17, they turned to Lunch, who from the middle of the third quarter through the overtimes accounts for 5 touchdowns. And the Cajuns come back and win that game. So he's made the most of his opportunity. I'll tell you, he's improved so much in the throw game over the last 5-6 games, to where he's a guy now that you got to respect his ability to get the football to the wideouts as well as his running ability. We all knew the kid was capable of running. But now we've found out he's a pretty good throwing quarterback too.
He reminds me a lot of a raw, maybe poor man's Levi Lewis.
I think the difference with Levi, two things. First of all, Levi almost never made a bad throw because he was totally okay with throwing the football away and saying, okay, next play. And the other thing is, while Levi had some capabilities as a runner, coaches didn't really want him to run because they were, he was a guy that you just couldn't afford to lose. Lunch has got a running capability. I think when we had Terrence Broadway and Blaine Gauthier back in the early days of Mark Hudspeth, I think those are the guys. If you want to look at Lunch as a runner, that's who you'd kind of compare him to, because he absolutely can run the football, and he's got really good speed, and he's a strong kid that can break tackles. I think he's more comparable, I think, to Broadway and Gauthier than he is maybe Levi.
A couple weeks back, the hot-headed Cajuns, they were raging against the Viva La Boob Cats, as we always talk about. Out of that, I mean, the suspensions are over with, except for Skipper. I know he's
right.
done for the year.
Right.
But how big is that loss? Or has it been that next man up has really been able to step up because you were able to go and get that road win at Arkansas State with the suspensions?
Arkansas State's got a guy saying hike that's been their starting quarterback for 3 years. You've got Rucker, who's got more yardage receiving than any player in Sun Belt history. And he wasn't even the leading receiver on the team as far as number of catches were concerned. And those suspensions that hit the Cajuns were 3/4 of the starting secondary. And so you had a natural freshman who's been starting a good part of the year, who's I think going to be a star. But you also had another kid that's never taken a snap in college football that's starting in the defensive backfield. And then you've got guys who were, backups that were seeing a little bit of action. And that's your defensive secondary for that game against Arkansas State. And the Cajun defense allowed 13 points because 17 of those points, one was on a defensive touchdown, one was on a 92-yard kickoff return, and the other one was a turnover that basically gave Arkansas State the ball in field goal position to start the drive. So you give up a touchdown and 2 field goals against that offense? I'm not sure we expected that.
How do you see this week's game kind of playing out, though? I mean, obviously the Cajuns have everything in the world to play for. I think really the Warhawks have everything in the world to play for because I don't think last year Bryant Vincent in his first year understood what this rivalry was. And it goes beyond ULM, Louisiana-Lafayette, the name game. It's almost a north-south, almost Civil War type. It's communities. It's everything. But how do you see this game kind of playing out this weekend?
Well, first of all, ULM's sitting there at 3-8, but one of the smartest coaches I've ever known, even though he was a baseball coach, said only a fool underestimates his opponent. So I don't care what ULM's record is. I can look at them on tape and say, you know what? Their defense is pretty doggone good. Now, they've struggled to move the football. They had injuries at the quarterback position, which will really make it difficult to move the football. And I think even when healthy, I don't think that's the strength of their football team. But defensively, especially up front, they cause a lot of problems, especially for a depleted offensive line like the Cajuns have. I think that if the Cajuns are able to run the football, I think they're going to be okay. But I think ULM's going to make it as tough on the Cajuns to run the football as anybody they've played maybe since Missouri. I think their front seven are really, really good. And that is going to be, I think, a very interesting key to this football game. Now, if the Cajuns keep ULM, and defensively they keep ULM from getting an explosive play, and they're going to make ULM drive 70, 80 yards, I think the Warhawks are going to have a problem there. But if you give up a couple of explosives and you're not allowing any yourself, you're going to have a chance to win. And I think the thing that everybody who follows this game needs to understand, that defensive line that ULM has is going to cause some issues for the Cajuns, and they're going to have to find a way to overcome it, because I think the Warhawks up front have a pretty big advantage.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Jay, 25 years of Sunbelt. It doesn't feel like it's really been that long. So I'll ask you, because we're the old men of the league. I mean, I look around at media days. The two of us have pretty much been here from day one of it. Everyone else has kind of come and gone. Who is, in your opinion, the best coach, offensive and defensive player that the Sunbelt has seen?
Well, it's hard for me to talk about, there are two coaches I think that stand out, Larry Blakeney being one of them over at Troy. And, I think that Napier guy that we had was pretty good. Those two guys, I think, stand out more than the others, but we've had some very good coaches come through here. Kane Womack might be the new coach at Arkansas from what we've been hearing. Okay. He was a guy that was that was maybe the youngest football coach in the FBS when he got the job at South Alabama. So I think you've had some coaches come through that have turned out to be awfully good coaches. You can't argue with the success that Jamie Chadwell had when he was at Coastal Carolina. Now, he had a quarterback that was really, really special. All right. But he still won a ton of football games. But Blakeney and Napier, I think, stand out to me more than anybody else. But there have been some good coaches come through this league now.
For me, I think the coach that stands out to me the most, and those are great selections that you've had, Howard Schnellenberger. And the reason being, he built the program pre-portal, where he had to go out and recruit guys for 2-3 years of, hey, come play football at FAU. You're not going to play anybody, but we're going to practice and we're going to build the program up. And then once he was kind of at day one going forward, it was only 4 years maybe before they were in their first bowl game.
Coach Schnellenberger, in addition to being a great football coach, was also one heck of a recruiter and a pretty smooth talker. Okay. If you go back in Coach Schnellenberger's time as a head coach, he gets the job at Louisville and he says, we're going to win here. The only variable is time. So he gets to FAU and he says it out loud for people to hear it. Within 4 years, we're going to be in the Big East, because the Big East football was still a thing back then. And so he had a couple of really good players that, how'd you wind up at FAU? Well, Coach Schnellenberger said we were going to be in the Big East in 4 years. He got players to believe that. And so as a result, they recruited very well at FAU while he was there. I agree with you. This is a guy who won at an extremely high level. Hell, he won a national championship. But I think, and I had an opportunity to talk to Wright Waters a couple of weeks ago, and we just reminisced a little bit about the early days in this league, like the first 10 years. And without Howard Schnellenberger, did the Sun Belt get as good as they? I don't know. I mean, but I do know that he was an integral part of it. And when the Sun Belt was fighting to be respected as an FBS football league, you had a guy who had been there, done that. And I think it gave the league a lot of credibility that they deserved, but maybe wouldn't have gotten otherwise at that particular time. So excellent choice on your part.
I do what I can.
Yeah.
Offensive player. I got so many that I've really loved watching in this league. Alfred Morris, running back at FAU, Rusty Smith, the quarterback there, T.Y. Hilton at FIU. But Jay, maybe I'm biased, and I know everybody from ULM is going to throw rocks at me next time they see me. Nothing beat Tyrell Fenroy.
Tyrell Fenroy came in as the second most recruited running back on that team. They had recruited a kid by the name of Dion Wallace that they thought was going to be a star. And he had a couple of pretty decent years. But I remember back when I was doing a radio show every day, I had a guy call and he said, look, he said, I'm from down the river. He said, and I just want you to know you got a guy coming in named Tyrell Fenroy who's going to be really special. Well, he was right, because he's gained more yards rushing than anybody in college football in the history of the state of Louisiana and the history of the Sun Belt. He was, give it to me 35 times. I don't care. Okay. I'll run it 35 times. And it's not that Tyrell was this big bruising dude, right? He's about, 5'9" and maybe about 210, 215.
But he had the linebacker pads.
But
he had the full linebacker pads.
He did. And he had no fear. And he didn't think anybody could tackle him. And you know what? When you talk about bringing him down in the first hit, he was as tough to bring down early in the ball carrier time than any player I've covered. You just were not going to you weren't going to stop him for no gain. He was going to pop. You were going to hit him at the line of scrimmage or a yard behind it, and he was going to wind up a yard or two past it, even if you made a good play. So I agree with you. Tyrell was, he didn't play in the National Football League. And there are a lot of players from this league who have played in the National Football League. But if you're talking about this league and college football, it's hard to go with anybody other than Fenroy, especially at the running back spot. Now, we can talk about good quarterbacks now. As a matter of fact, I was telling somebody the other day that one of the great arguments or debates that we had a decade plus ago was, are you taking Ryan Applin or are you taking Colton Browning? Those were your choices. Ooh. And the guys that I work with talk about how much they liked Applin. And I said, I'm just telling you, if I got to pick one, I'm taking KB 15 because as long as he's on the field, the Warhawks have a chance to win. He's maybe my favorite quarterback that I've covered in the Sun Belt Conference. And honestly, there are people that are listening to this podcast going, who? I just know when he had the ball in his hand, your team had a chance to win. And I remember talking with, and you know the guy, talking with Moon Griffon. And we're talking about the game coming up, and he says, oh, y'all are going to kill us. And I said, let me tell you something. As long as number 15 is upright, they got a chance. And we were favored pretty good in that game. And ULM beat us at Cajun Field. And, hey, it's because your dude was a dude. There are two athletes at ULM that I always thought maybe never got enough credit. Browning was one, and the other one was Ben Swanier, who was as good a baseball player as this league has ever seen. But yet, if you bring him up, people go, wait a minute, who? That dude was a, 3-time All-American? I mean, he could play, man. Those are the two guys from ULM that I'm always going to have a conversation about those two guys and talk about how doggone good they are.
My last honorable mention, though, before we go to defensive side, North Texas quarterback Giovanni Visa.
Yeah.
He, for his freshman year, kind of came out of nowhere, was just slinging the ball around. I think he had 6-7 touchdowns that might still be a conference record in a game.
Yeah. It's funny. I was looking at, we do a thing on our pregame show, This Day in Cajun Football History, and Giovanni Visa's name came up. He was the quarterback at North Texas the night that Jason Cherry scored 5 touchdowns in the first half, and we beat North Texas like 59-30, but Visa was good. If you remember when Todd Dodge got that job at North Texas, his son Riley was going to be the guy, right? And he was going to come in at the very beginning and be the guy. And then he had injury issues, and it was, okay, now what do we do? And they had that kid Giovanni Visa, and he was good.
No doubt.
His teams were not good.
No, not at all. That was after they got rid of Dickey, North Texas just kind of fell off for the rest of their Sun Belt time.
And they fired Dickey because he wasn't getting them to the next level. Okay, they were winning the Sun Belt, but they wanted to get to the next level. So they brought in Todd Dodge, who almost single-handedly destroyed that program. Yeah. Because when he got the job, he said, okay, here's what we're going to do. And so he hired all of his high school buddies to be his assistant coaches. And defensively, they were just really bad. And it took them, at least a decade to recover from that particular hire. And, Riley Dodge, Todd's son, is the head football coach at South Lake Carroll, who's still going out and killing everybody. So he's becoming as good a high school legend as his dad was. But I wouldn't hire him to coach my college football team. Not right now, anyway.
No doubt. Defensively, you got to go with DeMarcus Ware, right? At the defensive end for Troy. Maybe I'm a little biased. Love watching Greg James play. He is the all-time leader in interceptions in Sun Belt history. You didn't want to throw his way, period. End of sentence.
Got this guy, Demario Davis, who was a pretty good football player too.
He did okay.
Along with DeMarcus Ware. Those are the two names that come to mind, right?
Yeah.
Those are the two names that come to mind when we talk about defensive players in this league. And they're going to be, what about? And you could make a case for a lot of whatabouts, but those are the two guys that just jump up and say, here I am. I'm the GOAT. I think we had 2 GOATs, and I think those are the 2 guys.
I mean, Ware's got a gold jacket, so he did okay.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And I'll tell you, Davis is going to get some consideration for that jacket as well because of the career he's had in New Orleans. That's the second best free agent signing in Saints history behind some Breeze guy. I'll tell you a story. I'm doing the radio show every day, right? So the Saints announced they have signed Drew Brees. And I'm on the radio with another guy, Scott Prather. And we're talking about it. And I said, okay, they signed a short guy with a bad shoulder who right now can't throw the ball 3 feet. And he's going to be the future of this franchise. That's going to be the worst signing in Saints history. I'm not always right, Dusty. Sometimes I get it wrong.
Ooh, I'm clipping that audio.
You ought to, because I don't say it very often. No, it's probably the dumbest statement I've ever made on the radio.
Yeah. I mean, you learn about a lot of the analytics of when guys are maybe past their prime. All the analytics said, yeah, that was terrible. He wasn't going to be able to recover. He wasn't going to be able to play. He wasn't tall enough. Everything that you ever hear. And I think that adds so much more to his story that he was able to overcome all of that and take the Saints somewhere they have never been before and probably may never go again.
That's I think you just said it in a nutshell. I didn't see that coming. And I think, and if people said, oh no, Jay, he's going to be the best quarterback in the NFL. Nobody told me that.
Last thing I have for you, it's round ball season. How is Q doing to lead the Cajuns right now?
They're playing their third game in their West Coast trip as we speak. They're 1-5. They've not played well. I think this team has got some deficiencies that I think will only be addressed in recruiting, because they don't have much of an inside presence. Now, they also have a couple of injuries that has really hurt them. And a kid that I think is going to be an absolute star, Josh Lewis, we're only seeing the beginning of him right now. He's a freshman out of Tampa, Florida, because he missed 3 months with an injury, and he's just now starting to go into shape. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win some games, but I'll give you an idea of how this season has gone. They played Stanford last week. Stanford had 28 field goals in 58 attempts. The Cajuns had 28 field goals in 57 attempts, and the Cajuns lost by 28. Cajuns made 2 3-pointers. Stanford made 11, and Stanford shot almost 40 free throws. Outscored the Cajuns by 18 or 19 points just at the free throw line. That has been the biggest problem for this team. Other teams are getting to the line 25, 30, 35 times a night, and the Cajuns are getting there, 12 to 16. And you can play as good a half-court defense as you want to, but if you can't play defense without fouling, you're going to have an issue. And I think that's the issue for the Cajuns right now. They just, Quantis is, and by the way, I'm totally sold on this guy. I think he's a very good coach, but I also think he's a top-notch human being. And, of course, his team's going to be predicated on the defensive end because that's what he did at the University of Houston, and he played for Kelvin Sampson. I mean, that's who he is, right? But you got to be able to guard closely without – I think what he's finding is that the whistle gets blown a whole lot more on this level than it did night after night in the Big 12. And so that's been their problem so far. That, and they've been without their point guard, I think, for 4 games now. And they haven't shot it very well from the outside. If you're not going to be able to score inside, and the Cajuns do have some deficiencies there, well, you better be able to shoot it from the perimeter. And they haven't been consistent in that regard. They've had a couple of nights that they've shot it well, but unfortunately, more often than not, they haven't. I mean, you got to go out, and when you look at the box score and you've only got like 11 or 12 field goals for the game, that usually is not good. So I Bleav in what Quantis is doing, and I think that there's going to come a time where the Cajuns are pretty good, but they've got some deficiencies that they're going to have to address in recruiting to go along with some players who are pretty talented, but they need some talented bigs who can score the ball inside. I think that's the biggest thing right now.
Awesome stuff. Jay, I can't thank you enough for stopping by. Always love talking to you. I hate, though, that we're not in New Orleans sipping on buckets of beer, telling lies there. So we'll just have to make up for it maybe on Saturday.
The good news is, Dusty, we can tell lies anywhere. Okay,
that's true.
We can lie at Our Lady of Lourdes Stadium pre and post game on Saturday, and nobody's going to call us a liar because we're so convincing when we talk to people. But you're right about the buckets of beer. But guess what? We got a brewery right down the street that does its own beer that you can't buy it by the bucket, but it's awfully good. So, I'm just saying.
My arm's hurting from you twisting it there, Jay.
Yeah, I know. I'm this kind of guy I am.
I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Thanks so much for having me. Take care, man.
This is the story of the one. As a custodial supervisor at a high school, he knows that during cold and flu season, germs spread fast. It's why he partners with Grainger to stay fully stocked on the products and supplies he needs, from tissues to disinfectants to floor scrubbers. All so that he can help students, staff, and teachers stay healthy and focused. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.